Good morning everyone. So today we are going to see about class introduction in Java. So what is a class in Java? So class is defined as a new data type, and in that particular class you will be defining new instance variables and new methods, and that particular class can be accessed through the objects. So class is defined as a new data type, and it is used to create objects of that new data type. So class is nothing but a template for an object, and through object only you will be able to access all the variables and methods in that class from the main class. So that is what object is, an instance of a class. So now the class will be declared using the keyword class, and within that class you will be having data and variables. Those things are considered as a instance variables. Similarly, the methods and variables within the class are called as an members of the class. So this is an introduction about what is a class and how you will be declaring a class, and what are all those instance variables and members of the class. So this is the syntax for defining a class. So first one is the class keyword, followed by user defined class name, the name that can be given by the user, and within that class name you can have instance variable, that is a, and its type will be int. Therefore int a is considered as an instance variable, and n number of variables can be defined inside the class. Similarly, the method that you are defining inside the class are called as an instance method. So for that again the same thing, return type of the method, then the method name followed by parameter list. So this is the syntax for a class. Now we will see an example of that class. So class keyword followed by the class name is box. Within that class, that within that parenthesis you have to define all the member variables and the method name, instance variables and instance methods inside that class box. So the data type of these three instance variables, width, height and depth, are double. So class box, within that you are having the three variables, three instance variables, width, height and depth. So this is how you will defining a simple class. So how you will access the class outside of this particular class box is only through the object. So how you can define an object is box, this is the name of that class followed by the object name. The object name is my box equal to new. This new is an keyword that you have to use whenever you are creating an object, followed by box of, that is the considered as a constructor, like it should be the same class name. So whenever you are creating an object, automatically a constructor will be called. If you are defining a constructor, that will be called, otherwise an default constructor will be called. So what is the usage of that constructor is, it will initialize all the variables and functions that you are used inside a class. So this is an example. For example, using the object name, my box is the object name, you can access the instance variables within the class box using the object name, that is object name is my box. So my box dot width equal to 100. That means using that my box object you are accessing the class box, and within that class box you are having one variable, one instance variable as width, and now you are accessing that outside of the class and you are initializing its value to 100. So this is a simple example. So now we can see an entire program. So the same thing, class box you are having three instance variables, and outside of the class and one more class you are having box demo. This is the main class, and within that you are having public static void main string arguments of, that is your defining a main class in a Java, and there, in order to access the class box, you need to create an object. So as we have seen in the previous slide, you will be creating a object using the class name, then object name equal to new keyword followed by the constructor. So that is the same class name followed by open and close brackets. So this is what now you have created a object called mybox. Then using that object, you will be accessing the instance variables that are defined inside the class box, and you will be initializing the values. Width is initialized to 10, height is assigned to 20, and the depth is assigned to 15. And next you are going to calculate the volume of the box. So VOL, it is the double variable that you have declared after that creating an object. So volume equal to object name dot width into object name dot height into object name in dot depth. If you multiply 10 into 20 into 15, you will get the value as 3000. Next line, you are printing the output, that is system.output out.println. Volume is VOL. VOL is the variable name where you have saved the calculation of multiplying width, height and depth. So whenever you are accessing the variables, instance variables outside of the class, you must use that object. So this is a simple example of how to declare a class and how to access it. So similarly here you can create a new two objects also. For example, the same class box, and within that main class you are having two object name, mybox1 and mybox2. Both are created for access the same class box. So what you are doing, using the first object mybox1, you are assigning the values of width, height and depth to 10, 20 and 15. So you will get the same output if you are multiplying 10, 20 and 15 as 3000. Using the second object mybox2, you are assigning the value of width, height and depth as 3, 6 and 9. If you multiply 3, 6 and 9, you will get the output as 162. So in the next line, they have computed the volume of the first object mybox1, that is mybox1 dot width into mybox1 dot height into mybox1 dot depth. So what happens, 10 into 20 into 15, and in the next line you are printing volume is 3000. Similarly, in the next last two lines, now you are using the second object mybox2 and you are multiplying width, height and depth, and next you are using, that is 3 into 6 into 9. Therefore you will get the output in the next line as volume is 162. So this is the example of how to create two box objects for the same class box. So now declaring objects. As we have seen already how to declare the objects, usually it is a two-step process. First one is declaring this is the object of the class box, like box mybox. That means mybox is an object of the class type box. So you are declaring a reference to the object. And in the second line, you are allocating a box object, that is mybox should point to the class box, like mybox equal to new box of. Only in the second line that mybox will be pointing to the class box. So instead of these two steps, writing these two steps individually, you can combine them into a single statement as box mybox equal to new box of. This is the way how you will declare an object. So if you are just having box mybox, means the effect is just a mybox, an object will be created without any assignment. If you are using the second statement mybox equal to new box of, then only it will, that new object mybox will point to the all the variables in that particular box with the height and depth. So how to assign object reference to variables? Object reference variables. For example, you are having box b1 equal to new box of. This means you are creating an object name is b1 for the class box, and in the next line box b2. So b2 is also a object, and for that object, instead of creating it new, you are assigning the memory, you are assigning that reference of b1 is assigned to b2. Therefore b1 and b2 will be pointing to the same box class. That is, you can see in this diagram, b1 and b2 both are two different objects, but even though they are pointing to the same class box object. So whatever changes you are doing using the b2 will affect the b1 also, because both are referring to the same thing. If you are creating two different objects, means the effect of one changes will not be reflected on the second object. Since you have assigned the object reference to another object, whatever changes you are doing, that will be reflected in both the objects. So now we will see how to use the methods. So far we have seen of using only instance variables. Now we will see how to use the instance methods inside the class. So class usually have two things. One is instance variable and instance method. So instance variables we have already seen. Now the same way of using the methods, we will be having a return type, then the name of the method followed by parameter list and the body of the method, like whatever execution you want to perform, and finally you will be returning the value if the return type is given as some data type. If the return type is void, means it will not return anything. So we will see an example here. The same class box having three instance variables. Along with that, here you are having the method name volume and its return type is void. That means it will not return anything, just it will perform the calculation if it is called using an object. So first you are printing volume is, and in the second line you are printing width into height into depth. So whatever value that is passed through the main class, that will be reflected here. So this is how you will add a method to a box class. Next, in the main class you are creating two new objects, mybox1 and mybox2, and then mybox1 dot width equal to 10, 20 and 15. The same thing you are assigning here, and mybox2, here also you are doing the same thing, 3, 6 and 9. In the previous example we have seen that you have calculated the same formula for both the mybox1 and mybox2. Here no need to calculate it again and again. Instead of that, you can just call that volume method that you have defined in the class box using the object name. For example, if you are calling like mybox1 dot volume of, so mybox1 you are having the width, height and depth as 10, 20 and 15. So that will be passed as an that values will be passed as an argument to that method, and it will calculate the 10, 20 and 15, and it will calculate the output as 3000. Similarly, if for the second method you are using the second box, so here you will be using mybox2 dot volume, that means 3 into 6 into 9, therefore you will get the value as 162. So in this way you can call the method using the method. You can use methods inside a Java. So if you want to return a value, how you can return? The same example. Now you can see in this volume method you are using the return type is double, therefore you have to return width, height and depth. So since you are returning it, it should be printed in the main class. So in this main class you can see you are creating two objects. You are assigning the values mybox1 dot width, mybox1 dot height and mybox1 dot depth. Similarly, you are assigning the second object also, and after using mybox1 dot volume you are printing it. Volume is VOL. After calling this volume mybox2 dot volume, again you are printing it. Since the values are returned, you have to print it here in the main. So this is how you will use the things. So adding a method that takes parameters. So far we have seen a method without taking any parameters. Now if you want to include the parameters, how to use it. So int square is a method without having any parameters. So whenever it is called, it will return the value as 100. Instead of that, in the second function, int square of int I, that means the I is a parameter that is passed to the method square. So here you are returning I into I. So whatever your value you are passing, that will be multiplied by itself and it will return the value. For example, x equal to square of 5. Here for the I value, you are assigning the value as 5. So 5 into 5 you will get 25. It will return 25. Similarly, x equal to square of 9. So 9 into 9 it will return 81. In such a way you can add methods that will take parameters. So thank you for listening.